morning. It's Sunday, April 29th. I'm Ashanti Blaize. Thanks for joining us. We'll have those stories in just a moment, but first, here's a live look outside this morning. We could be in for some record-setting heat today.
Hey everyone, I'm Caribbean Jim.
And I'm Ashanti Blaize.
And we are here in the home of Bacardi rum. I just got thirsty saying
Right,
that.
me too. We're in San Juan, Puerto
my
Rico.
gosh, get out.
There were 139 passengers on that JetBlue Airbus, and Janet Jacobs was just one of them. For more than 2 hours, the plane circled Los Angeles International Airport, and Jacobs says the passengers watched the whole event unfold on their in-flight satellite televisions. I think a lot has changed. You know, when I first got into journalism, it was 2002, and I think traditional rules were still very much in play. So you were covering stories with the purpose of that content airing on television. Internet, social media wasn't even a factor. Social media in college was, you know, you being in the lobby of your dorm saying something stupid. That was social media. That was it. So, you know, I don't envy journalists coming up now who are, you know, in their late teens, in their 20s. It's a different world. It's a different world, and it's a lot less private. When things really started to full-blown change was when the recession hit. And so when newsrooms had to start laying off certain departments, certain staff members, what it meant was television reporters now had to do a lot more with a lot less. Some journalists just want to get it out and get it out fast. To me, it was more, let me make sure I get it right. Because once it's out there, you can't take it back. And that's the biggest thing. So do I think that it compromised? In some instances. And I think it's more of a case-by-case, journalist-by-journalist type of basis. But I think more of what maybe influenced what information was correct going out and what information wasn't is more of this creation of the citizen journalist. Because with social media, now anyone can be a journalist. You know, you don't have to go to, you know, to a school and get a bachelor's degree in journalism or broadcast or communications to then have to go through a small market to a medium-sized market to, you know, you don't have to go through that process anymore. Now it's this situation where some kid who's 16 years old who finds out some information, they can put it on social media, and a lot of people feel like that's the news. So it's changed a lot, and I think one of the reasons why we have a lot of misinformation out there is because now we don't have these, you know, fact-checking processes that journalists have to go through with your citizen journalists. They don't have to go through a morning meeting. They don't have to go through a producer who fact checks. You know, they don't have to do those things. They just put out the information as they see it and they know it. I had situations where, you know, I had folks writing letters. I would get like 4 letters a day, you know, saying, oh, I was at this location. And I saw you. At the end of the day, if somebody wants to find you, they're going to do it. You know, one of the ways I had one guy show up at live shots. So if I was reporting on the morning show, well, you're doing about 5 or 6 hits from the same location. So he'd watch the first hit. He'd know where we were. He'd show up. So I don't think that social media has changed that. I think there's always going to be those people that don't know the boundaries and often step over them and often feel like because they're seeing you on a consistent basis that you are part of their life and that they know you personally. You know, I think that social media makes it easier, you know, and I think it also blurs those boundaries because now you're specifically calling people friends. You know, I know I've had several viewers who believe that they are my friend and have had to explain to them, you are my virtual friend. we don't hang out. We don't discuss, sensitive topics in both of our lives. Is it scary? Absolutely. But I think it's one of those things where you take the good with the bad. When you want to be a journalist, your goal is to get the story and to keep politicians honest and to make sure that the community knows the information and gets the information that they need to be able to go through their daily lives. Those are some of the bad things that go along with being a journalist and being a public figure. People can say whatever they want to about you. I think I've been fortunate. I haven't had a situation where I've had a lot of disparaging comments about me personally. A lot of times it'll be nitpicky things like, oh, I don't like your hair today, or, I don't like the coat you're wearing. I've always been a kind of very, if you're not paying for this jacket, I really could care less what you think about it. But I do know colleagues where, it did weigh on them a bit. I'd say 80% of the time, viewers are usually positive about, the stories that you're doing. Having people say, wow, I had no idea that was happening on this other side of town. I think I can help. Or, that was such an uplifting story. I'm going to share this with my group, or this inspired me to do something that I never thought I would do. I think you get those more oftentimes than not. Have I Googled myself? Absolutely. I do it all the time. Social media is not private. There's nothing private about it. And if you think that it's private, you're in for a rude awakening. Because anyone at any time can see your history of social media posts. And so to me, you have to take responsibility for what you're putting out there. And if you're doing that, there's nothing else you can really do. I think you have to expect that information's going to get out there. So when you are conducting your daily life, you have to be really careful. Like, I am never photographed holding alcohol. When I post things on social media, I never use a curse word. I'm very, very careful about what I post and how I post. And even when I respond to different posts, I'm very careful about how I respond. Very neutral. I think if you went onto my social media page now that I'm not an acting journalist, it would be very hard for you to tell whether or not I was a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. I think it would be very hard for you to tell my stance on abortion. I think it would be very hard for you to tell my stance on public education, because I don't put that information out there. Because as a journalist, you want to remain neutral. And so if someone that you're covering a story on, let's say you're covering the Republican National Convention and they don't feel like your story was neutral enough and unbiased enough, and if they can go to your social media page and see that you have a, Debbie for Democrats poster on your social media page, then you've just given them ammo to be able to support this claim, whether it's valid or not, that you're biased. I think with social media, traditional media has found a way to really reach more people with less effort. When it came to trying to identify people that were parts of crimes or victims, or even situations where you're trying to do a story about maybe a repetitive crime in a neighborhood, it was that much easier to post on social media, hey, does anyone know anyone who has had this experience before? We'd love to talk to them for a story. Or even if your station is doing a story about a missing child or a missing person, to be able to post that on social media and blast it out to millions of people with one click versus hoping and praying that they watch your television newscast exactly at 6 p.m. If you are looking for someone specific, it's easy to put in their name on Facebook and do a search and see if it's them. I know a lot of stories that we've gotten pictures that way. Does it work all the time? No. It doesn't. And I think sometimes it can be used irresponsibly. There's sometimes a reason that the names have not been confirmed to the media. And sometimes it's because the family hasn't been notified. And you never want to be a journalist who notifies a family that their son has died because you used a picture that was on Facebook. We were covering a story about a man who had committed a crime. The assignment desk editor had researched the name, found a picture that was a mugshot. Unfortunately, it was the wrong person. So we ended up having to do a follow-up story where we gave this man an opportunity to say, this isn't me. Yes, we have the ability to do all these things via social media, but is it responsible? You know, are we doing a disservice when our whole goal is to be of service? I think a good rule of thumb is if you wouldn't want your mother to see it and have a conversation with you about it, you probably shouldn't post it to social media.